What is the worst thing that has happened at a high school reunion party that you attended? My sister, my now husband and I were all in the same graduating class. Plus, my husband's best friend. Best friend's name is something like John Smith. Very common. He was very popular in HS. Super nice guy. Stood out in a crowd. If you didn't know him, you certainly knew of him. Even in a massive school. So anyway, the 20-year reunion rolls around. My sister is the only one who wanted to go. She called right after. Very upset. Apparently there was a huge memorial wall for John Smith, who had just died. None of us knew. Awful. My husband was like, huh, but we just saw him? Called him up and was like, hey dude, are you dead? No, not dead. Surprised, but not dead. Anyway, it turned out the much less popular other John Smith was the one who died. They made a lovely memorial for the wrong guy, who was forgotten totally. We still run into people to this day who see him and are like, hey, aren't you supposed to be dead? Graduated in 2008 and not a single word about any reunion. It wasn't really bad, just odd. A guy came with full Kiss style makeup on, white face, black shapes around his eyes and black lips. We were too awkward and polite to mention it, so everyone just chatted with him as though it was completely normal to turn up like that. Someone told me, "You're not a failure, be yourself." And so when I went and proudly told them what I was doing these days, working a $9.25 HR job, going back to school, having gotten life together in a rehab and back on track, I was proud. They all pitied me and one dude tried to give me money. It made me feel bad about my current progress. I hate people. One guy had made not one but two fortunes and had a net worth of well over $100 million by our 20th reunion. High-speed modem patents in the late 1980s. Early investor in broadband. Right place at the right time. He'd already retired. On our classmate update bulletin he listed his occupation as unemployed and unemployable as a bit of a gag. Some of the well-meaning but clueless types sought him out to offer encouragement and tips on how to find work. Not so much at but before. 10-year reunion for my largish school. 500 graduates per year. The plan was for the reunion to take place over Thanksgiving weekend. To help pay for the expense, raffle tickets were sent out to the entire class to sell. The reunion didn't happen. Didn't happen to me, but I had this friend who got someone pregnant back in the day and she kept the kid. They've both been great about it. He helps financially but that was the extent of his contribution. She married soon out of high school and met a great guy who has been the de facto dad. Either way, it's a day bring your kids if you have them event and someone let slip that my friend is that kid's real dad. And the kid heard it and it was a ducking it show. Everyone was trying to figure out who said that. And how could someone spill that secret, etc. In the end my friend pretended he was shocked and laughed it off as a joke, which honestly I fronted the kid was probably a good move. We'd been there less than an hour, having a great time reconnecting. Suddenly an old friend approached and said, "Is that your wife over there? She's pretty hammered," and as we watched, she tripped and fell face first. Full body crash onto a 12-top table where many of my old classmates were sitting. The table broke. Food and drinks flew everywhere. I walked over, scooped her up and half carried half walked her out the door. She took Xanax before going, unbeknownst to me, and was an alcoholic who started slamming drinks as soon as she got there. So, good times. At my 20-year reunion, 2 decades after high school, 2 guys got arrested for fist fighting on the sidewalk outside the bar we went to Friday night. Why were they fighting? One of the guys slept with the other guy's girlfriend in high school and drunkenly brought up the 20 years ago fling. Neither of them married her or even dated her after high school. Those idiots got charges 20 years later for her, though. I didn't go to my 10-year but my entire friend group did and they all called me asking where I was. While on the phone with one of them, he goes, "Oh it. Brittany is here." Brittany was a train wreck in high school and apparently hadn't changed in 10 years. She proceeded to get trashed, get in a fight with a waitress and did meth in the bathroom. Police picked her up that night after she was found her passed out in the McDonald's bathroom. It's been a decade since I finished school. I see an old classmate sometimes when he does maintenance work in my apartment block. About a year ago he asked if I was going to the reunion organized by some of our classmates. I said no because I couldn't think of anything worse and also hadn't been invited. Apparently they organized it over Facebook, which I don't have. When I next saw him 6 months later I asked how the reunion was and he exasperatedly explained that it had been a real show. The Mean Girls had started planning it together, fell out and then started each planning their own. So there was about 4 itty tiny awkward parties and everyone was confused. I wasn't even invited to the high school reunion. At my 10-year reunion, the organizers were doing the thing where they give awards for the person who came the farthest to attend. The person with the most kids, etc. The award came up for who had the oldest kid, and people started shouting out their kids' ages. When it quieted down, this shy girl near the front said in a normal voice, 11, and then we all realized why we had stopped seeing Heather right before graduation. The high school I went to had a really big gang problem. A great many people didn't attend due to being in prison. Some of those who were in gangs in high school had worked their way through the ranks. One in particular was pretty high up. He decided to show up. It was generally peaceful until somebody decided to stick him with a knife. Then all hell broke loose. The dude that got shanked was a colossal ass to me through all of high school, and now he's bleeding profusely from multiple stab wounds. Being an off-duty medic, I did what I do, half expecting him to bleed out on the gym floor. He didn't remember me. There wasn't that movie moment between us. I doubt he even recognized me. I just kept plugging holes and thinking I shouldn't have worn my nice shoes. Cops and Dems arrived. Few people got arrested. He survived. I ended up tossing my favorite dress shoes and a really nice pair of pants because they were too blood-soaked to rescue. At the after party, the one guy getting drunk enough to think it was a great place to discuss race relations with one of our black classmates. Well, not so much discuss as randomly impose the topic. The cringe nearly killed us all. My 50th is scheduled for October. All this is inspiring me to go just to see what happens. I hope I can get across the country by then. My husband invited the entire party to our home. The reunion was being held at a place you know, built to hold parties. Well, the majority of the people that were invited came, so we had 100 plus crammed into a 2,500 square foot house, and a bunch of them decided to jump into our pool, which was ice cold. I was not pleased with my husband. Small college reunion with my core group of friends from university. This was about 5 years after graduation. We all partied pretty hard in school, but mellowed out in our late 20s. Decided to all meet up for dinner at a local bar restaurant. Think a plebeies, but nicer. One guy showed up already wasted, with a duffel bag full of multiple packets of weed and the bottle he started on before meeting us. He decided we were boring, finished his bottle in the restroom, and refused to come out. He ended up passing out there. Bartender kicked him out. He came alone in an Uber, and we had no idea where he lived. None of us wanted to take him to our places. He was angry, puking and belligerent, so we dropped him off at his last known address, his parents' house. Both of them answered the door, and we handed him over. It was past midnight and incredibly awkward. He's not invited to the next reunion. At my 10-year high school reunion, we had a decent turnout, maybe 100 plus people. We were at a pretty nice hotel banquet hall. There was one guy I had known all through high school, and he was a well-known stoner. I'll call him Chris for this story. I see Chris walk into the banquet hall, stop in his tracks, turn around in a very slow 360-degree circle, surveying the entire room. He just says, "Whoa," and he looks visibly alarmed. He stops and his eyes settle on me. I say, "Hey, Chris, long time no see, man." He kind of slides over to me and whispers in my ear, "This is really weird. I'm pretty sure I know every single person in this room." And that is when I realize he is wearing the same clothes as all the banquet hall workers. Oh my god. Chris is working as a server at his own high school reunion, and he has no clue what is happening. I walk him out to the front lobby and explain it's our 10-year high school reunion. He is mortified, beyond embarrassed. He was never contacted and didn't even realize it had been 10 years since we graduated. He just knew he was working another catering gig in a never-ending series of catering gigs. I make him take me to his manager. I explain what is happening and tell the manager there is no way this guy is working his own high school reunion. Awesomely, the manager agrees. We find a different suit jacket and tie for him. And I take Chris back to the party. He ended up having a good night. 5-year reunion. One guy, always kind of a marginal figure in HS, but a nice person, after some sort of discussion, got his paycheck out and got loud saying, "Now do you think I'm a loser? Don't believe how much I make? Check this out." Of course, he just made things worse, and everyone was laughing at him. I mean, he had his paycheck on him, haven't seen him since. BTW. Someone had an epileptic seizure and we had to call an ambulance. They were okay, but the party ended very early. Found out less than an hour before that my now ex-wife was cheating on me. Someone confessed to me that I was his dream girl with his fiancée registered signee as his date to the reunion. I barely knew the guy in high school. Unfortunately for his fiancée registered sign, she didn't know anyone there and he refused to leave with her. He drunkenly said, "I'm not leaving with her. I'm leaving with you" to me. I told her to text me when their car was outside. Then, I whispered "let's go" in his ear, walked him out, and put him in her car. I'll never forget the look on his face when he realized who was driving, and I said, "Yeah, that's how tonight is going to end." But they still got married. So this guy slammed some more natty light during beer pong, then held his wrist up to his mouth as if it were coming back up, and then he projectile vomited. The best part is that all of it somehow shot forcefully from his fingers like Spider-Man, and we webbed everyone on that side of the room with vomit. It was full of cooked onions. It was amazing. My class never got to the reunion part. Our class president was MIA. When they tried to plan our 5-year reunion on Facebook, it devolved into people fighting over the venue and whether or not kids were allowed. Half the people wanted to get trashed and get away from their kids if they had any. The other half wanted a dry reunion in a local park with kids allowed. Our class also had no money because they spent it on stupid crap senior year. So people argued over whether it would be catered or a potluck, and how much they would collect from everyone if it was the former. Edit. This was a fund for senior trip, prom, etc. I don't remember where the money came from. Just know it ran out. I would not have gone even if they'd managed to figure something out. When I was in 7th grade, this rich snob bully, John, grabbed off my head a wool scarf my mother had knitted for me. He threw the scarf into a pile of muddy leaves and jumped up and down on it. When I went home that day, my mother was furious when she saw the torn, muddy scarf. She made me tell her who did it. Then she called the school principal and yelled at him. The next day John got pulled into the principal's office and paddled. That was back when they still paddled kids. 55 years later, at our 50th class reunion, John came up to me and angrily said, "You got me into trouble in 7th grade. I got him in trouble, and he's still mad about it." 55 years later, I said, "John, you were a D in high school and you're still a D." And I walked away. No one came. I went to my 10-year. It was admittedly a really ducking small town. So my class was only 27 people. But only 4 people showed up and 1 was actually homeschooled. It kinda sucked. I was looking forward to seeing people and traveled from a long way away, 3,000 miles. It kind of jaded me towards my classmates. I'm not angry or anything. Just a realization that there really wasn't any connection that survived. Not high school, but one time I got invited to my college's alumni event. This was only a few years after I graduated and I liked enough of my teachers to go just to see them. Anyway, we pull into the college and they have like 10 bouncy castles set up for the event. I'm still confused. Not mine, but my mother went back to her 40-year reunion last summer. In December she left my father, 36 years of marriage, for her high school sweetheart and is now living with him. Damn. I was class president and didn't get invited. I was no longer living in the country and wouldn't have gone anyways. But dang, I wish I would have been invited.